Today's lesson is on 2.6, factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. So in other words, we have a coefficient in front of the x squared other than 1, a number in front of the x squared. The first thing you have to do when you're factoring a trinomial is look for a common factor. Factor out the common factor first. You always need to do that or you're going to run into problems. So now we're going to factor 3x cubed plus 15x squared minus 18x. When we look at these terms, we look and see there is a common factor. The common factor, the greatest common factor, is 3x. So that's what we want to factor out. We want to factor out the 3x. And then what we're left with is x squared plus 5x minus 6. And now we're just factoring what we did before. So we factored something like that by making two sets of parentheses and knowing that each one is going to have an x, and we need two numbers that if we multiply we get -6, and if we add we get 5. So x plus 6 and x minus 1. So now 5x squared minus 35x plus 50. Pause the presentation, factor that, and then resume. Well, we can see that the common factor is 5. There is not an x in every term. So factoring out the 5, we have x squared minus 7x plus 10. And then two numbers that multiply to get 10 and add to get -7 are the -5 and -2. So our trinomial factored completely is 5 times x minus 2 times x minus 5. Now, factor 6x cubed plus 30x squared plus 24x. Pause the presentation, factor that, and then resume. Did you remember to factor out the greatest common factor first? And the greatest common factor is 6x. That leaves us with x squared plus 5x plus 4. And so factored completely, we have 6x times x plus 4 times x plus 1. Now another strategy for factoring is to factor by grouping. Later when you have polynomials with 4 terms, that's going to be an important strategy. I'm showing it to you now to introduce you to the strategy, but for trinomials, it's a lot more work. So it's a way to work towards the answer, but then we're going to look at just trying to be efficient and getting to the answer quickly. So we want to factor 6x squared plus 11x plus 4 by grouping. In a polynomial, if we're going to factor by grouping, we're going to take the first term and the last term, the 6 and the 4, and multiply them together. So 6 times 4 is 24. Then we're going to make a table with factors of 24. So factors of 24, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. And then we're going to add the factors. So 1 plus 24 is 25, 2 plus 12 is 14, and so forth. So now what we're looking for is in the sum of the factors, something that has a sum of the middle term, which in this case is 11. So we have the 11. So the 3 and 8 are the factors that we're looking for. So we're going to rewrite this 11x as 3x plus 8x. So we're going to write out that polynomial as 6x squared plus 3x plus 8x plus 4. So now we're going to group together two terms at a time. We're going to group together the first two terms. We're going to group together the second two terms. So we have 6x squared plus 3x and 8x plus 4. And now we're going to find a common factor for each of those terms. For the first ones, the common factor would be 3x. For the second ones, the common factor would be 4. So pulling the 3x out of the first terms, we have 2x plus 1. Pulling the 4 out of the second terms, we have 2x plus 1. So now in these terms connected with a plus, we have a common factor in each term, 2x plus 1. So we're going to pull that 2x plus 1 out, and what we're left with then is 3x plus 4. So basically that was like saying we have ax plus bx, where the x was the 2x plus 1. And when we pulled out the x, what's left is a plus b. So when we pulled out the 2x plus 1, what's left is the a plus b, or in this case 3x plus 4. So then the original polynomial factored would be 3x plus 4 times 2x plus 1. So using this method, we can find the factors and find the sum that gives us the middle term, and then we'll be eventually getting to the right answer. But that's a lot of work. We want to be efficient. So when we're given the instructions, factor completely, and we have a polynomial, 10x squared plus 17x plus 3, we always look for a common factor first. This one doesn't have a common factor. After that, we're going to follow the strategy we did in the last section, where we're just going to make two sets of parentheses. Now this one, we have a 3 at the end, so that's pretty easy. The only way I'm going to get 3 is 3 times 1. So my last terms have to multiply to get the last term. My first terms have to multiply to get the first term. So I need something to multiply to get 10, which could be 10 and 1 or 2 and 5. Now the inside and the outside are going to have to add up to that middle term. So I don't want to put a 10 right here, because 3 times 10 is 30. That's obviously way too big. So I'm going to try 2 and 5. So if I put a 5 here, 3 times 5 is 15, and a 2 here, 2 times 1 is 2. So 15 and 2 is 17. So inside and outside are giving me that middle term. So 2x plus 3, 5x plus 1 gives me that polynomial. Because the first term's 2x times 5x is 10x squared. The last term's 3 times 1 is 3. And then inside and outside, 15 and 2 is 17. So even if we try a couple things and we have to erase, it's still going to be a lot quicker than making a table and rewriting and grouping and factoring. So now try this one, 4x squared minus 2x minus 12. Pause the presentation, factor that, and then resume. This one, as I told you, we need to look for a common factor first. This has a common factor of 2, so we have to factor out the 2. When we factor out the 2, we're left with 2x squared minus x minus 6. And now for the trinomial, we can write our two set of parentheses. For 2x squared, the only thing we can multiply to get 2 is 2x and 1x. Now we have a minus 6. The signs will have to be different. So we need the middle term to be negative 1. So if we put 3 and 2, that gives us 3x and 4, which the difference is 1. So we need the 4 to be negative, so we get a negative 1. So minus 2 times 2 is negative 4. Positive 3 times positive 1 is 3. So negative 4 minus 3 gives us the negative 1. So there's our answer, 2 times 2x plus 3 times x minus 2. Okay, last one, try this. 10x squared plus 3x minus 1. Pause the presentation, factor that, and then resume. All right, this expression doesn't have a common factor, so we're just going to make our two sets of parentheses. The 1 is easy. The only thing I can multiply to get 1 is 1 and 1. So 2x and 5x, 2 times 5 is 10. 5 minus 2 is 3. So I need the 5 to be positive. So this will be plus because that'll be a plus times a plus, and then this will be negative because 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And so there's our answer. 2x plus 1 times 5x minus 1. Okay, that's lesson 2.6. So now, let's do the classwork.